Hello students, welcome back to your video class, and today in your ninth class we are going to start your SST chapter, and the section of SST we have taken your book, your history book, lesson number first. The name of the chapter is French Revolution. Students, I tell you, you have read few chapters from civics and geography and economics, and now we are starting your textbook India and Contemporary World, and in that your first chapter name is French Revolution. Students, revolution, this word is not new to you. You must have heard in your previous classes, especially in 8th or 7th class, revolution. This word is very familiar with you, but you must have read this word, or you must have heard this word for some other place. But now this is linked with the French student. French means the people who live in France. So those people are called French, like we live in India, so we are called Indians. And the French people, and the revolution, what do you understand with the with the word revolution? However, as I tell you, you know it here, you have read it in your previous class. The revolution means with such a massive motive against the policies, against the political form, against, you can say, government, or against the country's whole population, or the wide level any movement which is started by the people, mass people, that form of objection or opposition is called revolution. In simple language, you can say, you people see, sometimes I tell you with the example that your city is, okay, suppose this is the world, this is a country, France, okay, this is France. So suppose in your country the government leader, or the main person of the government who controls all the activities, is not doing the work well, or doing something injustice to people, imposing unnecessary orders on people of the country. So what they will do, by and large, and finally people will go against the government, go against the people. So if that movement is taken at mass level, that is called revolution. Otherwise, you see, people do strike for the small issues. Band, Bharat Band, Bharat Band, that is peaceful movement. Okay, and people sit on the railway track, people block the roads, people block the railway track, but that is only for a particular area and particular place. So if that takes wide, massive form, then it can become revolution. Means something change, revolt. The word is revolt. Revolt means change, bring the positive change, and people bring the positive change. That takes revolution. So we will study in this chapter French Revolution. As I told you that whenever revolution word comes, it means something is not going to going well with the people of the country, or something is going very bad with the people, doing very bad with the people. So people take this step of revolution. So students, French Revolution started, or you can say broke out on 14 July 1789. Well, what happened? I tell you the very brief introduction in simple words. On this day, people of France, and the capital of France is Paris. Right? You just see Paris. So that time, what happened that day? People of France, especially around 7,000 people. 7,000 people gathered on 14 July 1789, and they thought what? They wanted to actually a little bit I tell you the back history of this revolution, why this revolution started, then we will continue with this revolution. Actually there is some briefing you read, just see on page number, your book's page number, this is 3 number page. On the morning of 14 July 1789, the city of Paris was in state of alarm. All of a sudden, you know what happened? People came on the roads. The king had commanded troops to move into the city, and rumors spread that they would soon order the army to open fire upon the citizens. Some 7,000 men and women gathered in front of the town hall and decided to form a people militia. Militia means military. This word is military. People's military, and they broke into a number of government buildings in search of arms. So people of France, France, they were not satisfied with the policies of the government, or they were not satisfied with the government, and they were tortured by the king. That time the king was Louis XVI of Bourbon family. King Louis XVI. These are the traditional kings, generation after generation. So King Louis XVI ordered his army to go to the Paris, means to the city, and the people of Paris thought that this army would attack on them and they will be killed. This rumor spread. It was not actually, he did not send army to kill the people. He just, there was some some type of fightings or some disorder of law. So he sent the army to control the disorder only. But people thought that this army will open the fire on them and they will be killed. So people gathered and they thought that we must collect some weapons, we must collect some arms so we can fight with the army. So people gathered, 7,000 people, men and women gathered. And They people were not satisfied with the government of with the rule of Louis XVI. Actually, there was not form of government. It was, you can say, a ruler. He was a ruler, and it was a monarchy system. A monarchy system where, you know, people, son of a king is made again the king. So there is not like democracy or republic type of government. So we better call the ruler of the French. So he was Louis XVI, and people were not satisfied with him because he was imposing tax on people. And especially that time, three type of people were there, categories. One, clergymen. Clergymen means people who work in the church and such activities, religious activities. And the other group was royalties, noble families, higher class families, people belong to the king and the courtiers, the people who worked in the court of Louis XVI. And the third category was the common man. So the common man was not satisfied because they were bound to pay high taxes and unnecessary taxes by the Louis XVI. So people had some type of dissatisfaction in the mind, and that day on 14 July 1789 they just found this right opportunity to go against the government of the rule of the Louis XVI. And that day people gathered, they searched arms, weapons here and there in the buildings, and let's go ahead. They made a military. Finally, a group of several hundred people marched towards the eastern part of the city and stormed the fortress prison, the Bastille. Bastille, there was Bastille. These names, you know, I am writing on the board the main points or the main words which are very important to you to know, so you can note down. Bastille was a fort of the king. The king was Louis XVI, and Bastille was the fort. Or in that fort there was a jail also, Bastille jail also. So the people attacked on this fort, on Bastille fort. The people attacked on the Bastille fort, and they freed prisoners from this jail, from this prison, and they destroyed 7,000 people, destroyed the prison. They even broke each and every brick and stone of the Bastille palace, and where they hoped to find hoarded ammunition, arms. They thought that we will get weapons, at least when we will fight with the army, so at least we need some weapon. So they were searching weapon, some arms. So they entered the Bastille fort. In the armed fight that followed, the commander of the Bastille was killed, and the commander of the Bastille fort jail was killed by the people, and the prisoners released, though there were only 7 of them. However, there were 7 prisoners, but they were released. Yet the Bastille was hated by all, and people hated, you know, when we suppose we hate someone, it means we hate all the articles of that person. So people hated Louis XVI, and people hated each and everything which was related, which was linked with Louis XVI, and that palace was of Louis XVI. So people hated this Bastille palace, and that's why they broke each and every brick and stone of Bastille, and they destroyed this palace with anger. And the fortress was demolished, and its stone fragments were sold in the markets to those who wished to keep a souvenir of its destruction. So they destroyed Bastille Fort. People destroyed Bastille Fort. So we are just going to what people did that day. How? What happened on 14 July? This thing happened. People destroyed Bastille Fort and killed the commander of this jail. And let's go. The day that followed saw more rioting both in Paris and the countryside, in other countryside also, other area. Most people were protesting against the high price of bread, because that time somewhere was drought, there was no food to eat. So there was high price of bread. People were hungry because the price of the bread was very high. People could not afford to buy the bread, so they were also in anger. And much later, when historians looked back upon this time, they saw it as the beginning of a chain of events that ultimately led to the execution of the king in France. Though most people at the time did not anticipate an outcome, how and why did this happen? So one more reason was bread, because people did not find food to eat, and the price of the bread was very high. So this was the second reason that people were angry. People were annoyed with the King Louis XVI, and they were made to pay high taxes. That's why people were not happy with the King Louis XVI, and the king sent army to the city, to Paris. So again people rebuked. People got angry with king. And so these were the reasons, causes of this French Revolution, and people went against the king. And now see, in French society during the late 18th century. So how was the French society? I tell you, students, now see, you can see on page number 4, there is a picture, a society of states. How was the society of French that time? As I have told you, there were 3 categories. First, you see, first state. First state means the first category of people was clergy. The second state means second level was of nobility, means only noble people. And third state means third category. In third category people came, big businessmen, merchants, courts officials, lawyers, and in that also peasants and artisans, and then small peasants, landless labor, and servants. In third state, these categories. So the question is, I'm telling you the question based explanation. The question is, when did the French Revolution broke out on 14 July 1789. Who was the king that time? Louis XVI. And how many people gathered? Around 7,000 men and women. And where did they attack? They attacked on Bastille jail. And now how many levels, or how many 3 states were there? So you can tell 3 states. The first is clergy, nobility, and the common, you can say common people. In that, business person, some merchant, landless labor, servants, artisans, court officials. These people were in the third state. So this was the system of society. And now you can see struggle to survive. The population of France rose from about 23 million in 1715 to 28 million in 1789. So one region was, by 1789, the population of France, you can say, increased very rapidly. It became from 23 million, which was in 1715, and became 28 million in 1789. So you can say when population is increasing, there is big population, then obviously the supply of the things will decrease, whether for food items, whether of wearings, everything, the demand will increase but supply will decrease. So population increased very rapidly in that time, and this led to a rapid increase in the demand for good food and grains. Obviously, when population increased, then the supply of food and grain increased. Demand of food and grain increased. Production of grains could not keep pace with the demand, and production was low, demand was high, so could not make the pace. So the price of bread, which was staple diet of majority, rose rapidly. Most workers were employed at the labors in workshops whose owner fixed their wages, but wages did not keep pace with in rise in price. So the gap between the poor and the rich widened. Things became worse whenever drought or hail reduced the harvest. This led to a subsistent crisis, something that occurred frequently in France during the old regime. So this was one of the reason of the French Revolution. And I tell you, one reason was that the supply of the food or grain reduced, demand increased because population increased. So the poor people who got the fixed wage, suppose someone got 100 rupees per day, okay, so previously he was spending 20 rupees on food every day, but now the demand increased, so the 20 rupees food was not enough, so he spent 40 rupees. So this way the wage, the salary of the people was fixed, not increased, but the expenses were increasing. That's why the people were not happy, people were dissatisfied with the system, and this became one reason of this revolt, because the difference, the gap between rich and poor, the poor people were being more poorer and poorer, the rich people were being more richer and richer. So the gap between the poorer and the richer was widening, and this became the one reason of the revolution. So I'm telling you the reason of revolution, so you can understand well. Growing middle class envisaged an end to privileges. And middle class means in the third category there were some rich landlords, some rich merchants, some rich business persons. Those people were more close to the nobilities and the lower level people who were not paid proper attention and were not given proper facilities or proper attention. So that gap also widened, and in the past peasants and workers had participated in revolt against increasing taxes and food scarcity. Obviously, I have told you one reason was high tax on the people, and the other was food scarcity, but they lacked the mean and program to carry out full-scale measures that would bring about a change in the social economic order. This was left to those groups within the third state who had become prosperous and had access to education and new ideas. So in third level category also there were rich and poor people. In third state category there were two levels, upper and lower. Upper level people were more affluent or prosperous and they were educated, but the lower level people were not educated, so they had no any kind of such facility and knowledge of the things. The 18th century witnessed the emergence of social groups termed the middle class. So in 18th century one more class emerged, middle class. That's very common word. We say middle class family who earned their wealth throughout an expanding overseas trade from the manufacture of goods such as woolen and silk textiles that were either exported to brought by the richer member of the society. In addition to merchants and manufacturers, the third state included professionals such as lawyers, administration officers. All of these were educated and believed that no group in society should be privileged by birth. And in that period, one third group also emerged, that was the middle class family. And those people started trade and business overseas, and they did the business of, silk and merchant, and they become manufacturer of the products. And this class also emerged that time, and the idea of these philosophers discussed now. So this was the one more reason that the society was dividing into the sections, and people were not satisfied with the this distribution of the things, and the people who were rich and prosperous, they were not supporting the lower class people, and most of the affected group was only and only lower class, because the taxes were forced on them. It was the first level clergy state people did not pay tax, they were exempted from the tax. Nobilities were exempted from the tax, and some in the third state, some people who had good links with the nobilities and clergies, they even escaped from the tax. So the lower class people or the poor people, especially peasants who had no land and no own business, so those people were affected, and they were bound to pay the high taxes, and there was food and grain scarcity. So finally this became one more reason of French revolt. So students, we have gone through the introduction of French Revolution, and we'll continue with the outbreak of revolution in your next class. By the time you just revise this chapter which we have read so far, and will continue in your next class, and will know other reasons and the after effect of French Revolution. Thank you so much.